Watering in raised beds is one of the most difficult things to get right. I know, because I had many mistakes over many years to finally get it right. But I don't want you to go through those same mistakes. So in this video, I'm going to give you all the mistakes you need to know so you don't have to make them yourself. One of the main reasons we grow in raised beds is the drainage. You get excellent drainage if you fill it with the proper material. And if you want to know what the proper material is, I'll link a video I did down below in the description to general raised bed mistakes. And I've got that in there. But if you fill them properly, drainage is excellent. So it's really, really hard to overwater them, especially in the beginning of the season when a lot of the things are small, they're seedlings, their roots only go down an inch or two. And it's the first 2 inches to dry out. So that brings us to our first raised bed watering mistake, and that is underwatering. As the season progresses and plants get bigger and their roots go down deeper, you don't have to worry too much about the top 2 inches because most of the roots are down deeper than that. As the season progresses and plants get bigger, the top 2 inches aren't necessarily as important as they are in the beginning when the plants are small. So in the beginning, make sure regularly to use the finger test. Stick your finger in the soil about 2 inches and see if there's moisture there. And if there is, you don't need to water. If there's not, you do. A huge problem with underwatering is developing hydrophobic soil. When I first put these beds in, I got hydrophobic soil in a bad way. I would water for what seemed like an eternity and then dig down. And after the first half an inch, it was bone dry. When soil dries out and stays dry for a while, the soil can actually start to repel water rather than absorb it. So then when you water it, the water kind of beads up on the surface of the soil, runs to the edges, and goes out down the sides of the raised bed and out onto the ground or down deeper. Another reason to do the finger test. Now I've added a bonus at the end of this video. I'm going to show you how to fix hydrophobic soil. The second mistake is how you water. A lot of newer gardeners will stand out in the garden with a hose with maybe a nozzle on the end and just kind of spray it around. This is a bad idea for a few reasons. First of all, it wastes water. When you just spray it, a lot of water sits on the leaves of the plants and evaporates. It'll go on the paths and other areas that you don't need to water. And it seems like you're watering a long time, but not a lot of water is actually penetrating the soil down deep where it needs to be. But in your mind, you've been watering a while, so it should be done. And if you don't do the finger test, your plants are going to run out of water. Overhead watering and getting the leaves wet also leads to fungal diseases, which you don't want. Droplets of water splash on the soil where those funguses are lying in wait, and they get caught up in the water and splash up to the leaves where they take hold and begin to flourish. Now I hear from people who say, that's ridiculous. I live where it rains in the summer, and so how are you going to stop the rain? Well, you can't, but if you're lucky enough to live somewhere where it's not raining all the time in the summer, why make the problem worse? Because those of you who live where it rains in the summer know you get most of the fungal diseases. So if you live where it's dry in the summer, don't spray the leaves and spite your luck. So the best way to water is at the soil level with a drip system, a soaker hose, or a hose end bubbler. All right, sorry to break in, but I want to let you know we're doing a giveaway in this video. And it definitely goes along with what we're talking about, which is keeping moisture in your raised beds. Now the giveaway happens to be grassroots fabric pots and raised beds. Now, why in the world would I be talking about fabric raised beds, or pots for that matter? Aren't they the raised beds and pots that dry out the fastest? Well, overall, yes. In fact, I stopped growing in fabric of any kind for several years. Even when grow bags were all the rage, I stopped because I live in a hot, dry climate, and I would have to water any kind of fabric grow bag twice a day, sometimes in the summer. So I gave them up until I found Grassroots. Grassroots is completely different, and they are the giveaway today. They're giving away a $175 gift card to one of you. So let me tell you why you don't have to be afraid of them if your beds are already drying out, which is what led you to this video. Grassroots fabric is different. I've been growing in them now for 5 years. And I would venture to say that these raised beds actually hold moisture better than the wooden raised beds that I built myself. These raised beds, which by the way, this one only took me 5 minutes to put together and another 5 minutes to fill. So 10 minutes, you've got yourself a new raised bed. And it comes with everything you see here. But the inside of the fabric is where it's different. Everyone loves fabric raised beds because they breathe, because you get root pruning. If you don't know what root pruning is, it's kind of like when you pinch back your plants, you get a bushier plant. So if you pinch back your roots, you get bushier roots. You get, instead of just one long root that curves around your pot or raised bed, it hits the side of the fabric, it feels oxygen on the other side, and it cuts it off, and that puts the hormones back through the root to then start growing roots out all the way along that root to fill the pot with roots, rather than just having that one that winds all the way around the bottom of the pot and eventually strangles the plant. So the top of the grass roots beds and pots have a moisture retentive barrier. Food safe, of course. And then the bottom third is open fabric, just like any other grow bag, because that's where you want most of the root pruning, at the bottom. Fabric raised beds are also affordable. They can be moved around a little bit easier than metal or wood raised beds, and they come in all sizes. So for this giveaway, go down below in the video description. You're going to do two things. You're going to comment on this video why you want to grow in raised beds, why you grow in raised beds, anything. And the second thing is click the link in the video description, send us your email. We're not going to spam you and we're not going to give it away. It's just that a lot of times when we have giveaways, the comments get spammed by scammers trying to tell you that you've won and you need to send them money to be able to send your product. We don't work that way. So just to make it easier, we're going to directly email you at the end of the 7-day period. So 7 days from now, you have 7 days to enter. And then we'll contact you by email and let you know if you won the $175 gift card for these awesome raised beds. All right, back to the video. The next mistake is watering at the wrong time of day. The best time to water is between 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. And it's easy to do that if you have an automated drip irrigation system like I do. Mine comes on at 5, waters for 20 minutes every other day in the spring and every day in the summer. If you don't have an automated system, just make it a habit. Go out every morning with your coffee. It's a really reflective and peaceful time of day. I think you'll really enjoy it. 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. puts us before the heat of the day, when any water that gets on the leaves or anything can be dried off with the sun. You want to avoid putting your plants to bed wet at night if at all possible. It also lets the water soak into the soil before the sun comes out to evaporate it. Inconsistent watering is a big problem in raised beds, because in raised beds, your plants are contained. In the ground, if you're inconsistent with your water, if you underwater, those roots can push out and go deeper into the ground to look for the water they need. In a raised bed, they can't do that. They're at your mercy. Crops like tomatoes and peppers will suffer the most from inconsistent watering. If you've ever had your fruit look like this, that's blossom end rot. It's a lack of calcium in the plant, not in the soil usually. Calcium needs consistent water to move into the plant to go to the fruit. And so usually the problem when you have that situation is inconsistent watering. If your fruit splits like this, that's inconsistent watering as well. Splitting is like stretch marks on human skin. When you gain a lot of weight real quick, you get stretch marks. If a tomato has been without water and then all of a sudden gets a big bunch of water, it's going to swell the fruit really fast, splitting the skin. As a side note, you can eat fruit with blossom end rot and with the splits in it. Just cut those parts off. The fifth mistake is not mulching. In some climates, you can get away with it. If you're in a damp climate, you can get away with not mulching, although it will keep the weeds down if you mulch. But in my climate, I learned the hard way when I moved here. We have hotter summers than where I used to live, and I didn't mulch that first year. And my plants were always underwatered, because what mulch does is it keeps the moisture in the soil. Now I have a drip system. If you have drip irrigation, put the drip under the mulch. That water never sees the light of day. It goes right into the soil and soaks in just as it needs to. And then that blanket of mulch holds it in there. If you do not have that, and the sun hits that soil and it bakes it into a hard crust, it's going to be very difficult the next time you water for water to absorb. It's going to start to develop hydrophobia. So the water has nowhere to go except over to the edge of the bed and down between the soil and the side of the bed, which usually in hot, dry soil, the soil shrinks, and so it leaves a nice big space between the soil and the side of the bed for that water to just flow right out. So you always feel like you're continually watering. If someone tells me they have hydrophobic soil, I can 95% of the time tell them they don't have mulch. And they'll usually say, you're right, I don't. And like I said, mulch has the added benefit of suppressing weeds, and weeds take water out of the soil that would be going to crops that you want it to go to. And you can make mulch out of almost anything. Wood chips, wood shavings, pine needles, they actually don't make the soil more acidic, contrary to that myth. You can use grass clippings, fallen leaves, newspaper, cardboard, like I said, almost anything. All right, now the bonus, fixing hydrophobic soil if you have it. And at some point, everyone's going to have it, unless you live in a tropical climate where it rains all the time, then maybe you won't. The fix is simple, but you need some patience. To fix this soil, you need to water very slowly and evenly. So a soaker hose, a misting system, something that's going to penetrate the ground with the water over a long period of time. So I have a soaker hose, I lay it out for about an hour, sometimes 2, on a very low setting. After an hour, I'll come out and I'll dig down a little bit and see how deep that penetrated. And if it's not all the way through, I'll let it run again for another hour. Repeat the process until it's saturated all the way through the soil. Once it is saturated all the way through the soil, mulch, 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 and then water daily for 3 or 4 days. And by that time, you're going to have fixed your problem. And then don't ever make the mistakes in this video and you'll never have to worry about it again. If you're just getting started in raised bed gardening, click on this video right here for 7 general mistakes in raised bed gardening, and I'll see you next time.